Hit me, Producer Potts.
Dr. Sarah, why are mushrooms a Nutrivore Foundational Food?
Mushrooms are really unique vegetables. All other vegetables are plants, but mushrooms are fungi. And so, because of that, they have some really cool fiber types that we can't easily get from other foods, including chitin and chitosan fiber, which the only other foods we're going to get that from is exoskeletons, so insects and shellfish if you're eating the shell, like soft shell crab, and glucans, which are the same fiber that make oats and barley so special. Mushrooms are also a great source of vitamin D. 100% of Americans don't get enough dietary vitamin D, especially in mushrooms that grow outside or in UV lights. So wild mushrooms can have the entire daily value of vitamin D in a single serving. And some commercially grown mushrooms are grown under UV lights to up their vitamin D content, which you'll find on the label. Or you can create more vitamin D in your mushrooms from the grocery store simply by slicing them, laying them out on something like a baking sheet, and putting them out in the sun for 30 to 45 minutes before you cook them. Mushrooms also contain an array of phytonutrients like triterpenes and polyphenols. They also tend to be great sources of copper, selenium, vitamin B2, B3, B5, and biotin. But the coolest nutrient that mushrooms contain is a non-proteinogenic amino acid called ergothioneine. Non-proteinogenic means that we don't use ergothioneine to build proteins in our body, but ergothioneine still has tons of biological roles, especially as a very powerful antioxidant. Thanks to its antioxidant effects, ergothioneine reduces risk of cardiovascular disease, cancer, liver disease, cataracts, Alzheimer's disease, depression, and even frailty in the elderly, which is why ergothioneine has been nicknamed by scientists the longevity vitamin. So in addition to just being extremely nutrient dense, mushrooms have several nutrients that earn them Nutrivore Foundational Food status.
Dr. Sarah, what are the health benefits of eating mushrooms?
There are many. Mushrooms reduce the risk of several forms of cancer, with the best data being for breast cancer, liver cancer, ovarian cancer, prostate cancer, and stomach cancer, with risk reductions from high mushroom intake ranging anywhere from 18% to 70%. Mushrooms are really good at reducing cardiovascular disease risk factors too. A 2021 systematic review concluded that eating mushrooms regularly lowered LDL cholesterol, total cholesterol, triglycerides, and blood pressure while increasing HDL cholesterol. Eating mushrooms regularly reduces risk of depression. A 2021 analysis showed that people who reported eating mushrooms regularly compared to people who don't eat mushrooms had a 69% lower risk of depression. And a 2022 study showed that eating mushrooms monthly still caused an 8% reduced risk of depression. Mushrooms protect against age-related cognitive decline. A 2022 analysis showed that the people who ate the most mushrooms, which was only like 14 grams of mushrooms per day on average, scored significantly better on a variety of cognitive tests. And while we definitely need more studies, there is some indication that eating mushrooms regularly can help protect against pregnancy complications. In a 2020 clinical trial, participants were required to consume 100 grams of mushrooms daily, beginning before pregnancy and extending into the 20th week of gestation. Compared to the placebo group, the mushroom group had significantly lower risk of preeclampsia and gestational diabetes. Plus, mushrooms seem to improve general health, as measured by all-cause mortality, an indirect way to measure overall health and longevity. A 2021 analysis showed that eating any amounts of mushrooms at all, even just 1 or 2 times per month, reduces all-cause mortality risk by 16%. And a 2019 meta-analysis showed that eating 100 grams of mushrooms per day, which is about 1 1/3 servings, reduces all-cause mortality risk by 26%.
Dr. Sarah, how much mushrooms do we have to get all these amazing health benefits?
What's fascinating is that studies show that any amount of mushrooms we consume is going to deliver health benefit. But if you take an ergothioneine perspective to calculating a minimum target of mushroom intake, A really strong case can be made for aiming for 3 or more servings per week. A serving is 1 cup measured raw and sliced, or you can eyeball that as roughly the same volume as your fist. And mushrooms tend to shrink a lot when we cook them, at least by half.
So when we're looking at eating mushrooms and getting in enough, I know that there are like dried mushrooms, mushroom powder. There's all different kinds of mushrooms. There's the plain old cheap white button ones, and there's canned mushrooms, and there's cream of mushroom soup. Does it all count?
Absolutely, it all counts. The nutrients that are special in mushrooms are extremely well preserved through canning, through drying, through freezing, and you also get most of those beneficial nutrients from a powdered mushroom extract. Plus, the types of mushrooms that are typically powdered and sold as a supplement are the types of mushrooms that are extra great sources of those nutrients to begin with. All varieties of mushrooms are beneficial. So if all you like is the plain old white button mushrooms from the grocery store, that's awesome. And if you enjoy the more medicinal mushroom adjacent varieties, like oyster mushroom, shiitake mushroom, enoki mushroom, those are some of the most nutrient-dense mushrooms out there. And I actually really love having dried mushrooms at home. They tend to be a very cost-effective way of getting some of these more fancy varieties of mushrooms. And then I know that they're just in my pantry and I always have mushrooms on hand. Now, if cream of mushroom soup is your go-to way to get your mushrooms in, just know that you're not getting a ton of mushrooms per serving. And for mushroom powders that are often sold as a supplement, a tablespoon of mushroom extract powder is the equivalent of about 100 grams of fresh mushrooms. So a teaspoon a day of a mushroom powder would add up to your 3 servings of mushrooms per week. And if you're interested in diving deeper into the health benefits of mushrooms, I recommend my book, Nutrivore, The Radical New Science for Getting the Nutrients You Need from the Food You Eat, or an ebook I have called Nutrivore Foundational Foods.